The primary objective of Apollo 11 was to complete a national goal set by President John F. Kennedy on May 25, 1961, perform a crewed lunar landing and return to the Earth. In Western Australia during the live broadcast of the Apollo 11 landing, several people saw a very unusual occurrence. One viewer, Una Ronald, watched the telecast and was astonished with what she saw. As Una watched Armstrong walking on the surface of the moon, she spotted a Coke bottle that was kicked in the right-hand side of the picture.
Do you really believe they would have sent Neil Armstrong to another world we'll have never been before, would have sent them and filmed it live, not knowing what's going to happen at any point? What if they'd fell over and a rock pierced the suit? What would the public have said? Well, we're not going to support this no more. There wouldn't have been no NASA left, would there? Because nobody would have supported their little Eugene. First thing I would have done, and what any logical person would have done when you're coming down the ladder on the moon, the first thing you would have thought they would have looked up at the Earth or wherever it was and pointed, and at least waved.
1.5 Earth hours. This creates powerful winds that can whip around the planet at more than 300 miles per hour. About 75 miles below the clouds, you reach the limit of human exploration. Galileo probe made it this far when it dove into Jupiter's atmosphere in 1995. It only lasted 58 minutes before losing contact and was eventually destroyed by the crushing pressure. Down here, the pressure is nearly 100 times what it is on Earth's surface. And you won't be able to see anything, so you'll have to rely on instruments to explore your surroundings. By 430 miles down, the pressure is 1,150 times higher. You might be able to survive down here if you were in a spacecraft built like the Trieste submarine, the deepest diving submarine on Earth. Any deeper, and the pressure and the temperature will be too great for the spacecraft to endure. However, let's say that you could find a way to descend even further. You will uncover some of Jupiter's grand...
We are running up against an issue with the Van Allen belt. They kind of exist here. It's radiation, and that would tear up the human body. NASA was having a really hard time trying to figure out how to safely send someone through the Van Allen belts. Russia knew that we didn't, but couldn't say, you guys don't know how to get people through the Van Allen belts, and we know because we don't either. Russia, quietly failing to send people through the Van Allen belts, had killed a number of people. Gus Grissom was one of the original astronauts on the Apollo mission. He was originally going to be the first man on the moon. There's a conspiracy theory that NASA murdered Gus Grissom. He was publicly critical of NASA's success and ability to reach the moon. They needed him quiet. Right there, in 1967, Gus Grissom died. The failed Apollo 1 mission in which Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee died in a fire before launch. There are a lot of discrepancies based on the footage of the moon landing. And a lot of those I don't necessarily believe are good, hard arguments. What can't be explained away is the crosshairs on the photos. In the images of the NASA moon landing, these are photos that NASA took and released. There are moments where the crosshairs, which are fixed to the camera, actually lie behind equipment. The theory is that the only way that the crosshairs would be behind a piece of equipment in a photo would be if the piece of equipment was superimposed. This happens on a couple of occasions in the NASA photos, and to me, I don't know how you get around it. Say this is the photo of the moon. We got the rocks and the moon here. Let's say the sun is over here, right? Well, we got shadows naturally this way, but in some occasions, there are shadows competing. This would suggest another light source over here, sending the shadow this way. If you're on the moon, there wouldn't be two light sources, there would only be the one. The sun. The lack of artifacts. The easiest way to prove that we've been to the moon is to show people the things on the moon. However, everyone insists we don't have telescopes big enough to see the shit we found. The going argument is that to be visible from our best telescopes, something would have to be a little bit larger than a small house. That's nuts. A lot of people suggest that the footage is just slowed down half speed. We shot it in a Hollywood studio, jumped around, drove a lunar lander around sand, and then just cut it by half the speed. You take the actual footage from the moon landing, you do double speed, it looks almost exactly like a normal car driving around on a beach. Really very interesting. Look into it.